the Bible describes the slavery that was going on at the time in the area of the ancient Near East, what other cultures were doing with people, owning them as property based on some characteristic that it wasn't them. When I say the word slave, what is the first thing you think of? The first thing you think of are Africans who were kidnapped and then forced into labor against their free will, shipped across the Atlantic so they could work in various cotton fields and plantations and these kind of things and all that. You also think of various peoples who were sort of put into slave camps and slave labor and treated as property based on the tone of their skin or the ethnicity from which they come. That's what you think of. And the reason you think of that is because that is the most recent iteration of slavery in our history. You would naturally think of that. But every word actually has a meaning depending on its context. And the context can dictate what the word means depending on how you're using it. So when I say the word foot, what do you think I mean? You have no idea. It could be 12-inch span. Or it could be the things at the end of my legs. That's what it could be. Now, if I say, my foot hurts, now you know what I'm talking about. What I say has context to it. So the word slave in the Bible has a connotation and a context that dictates what the word actually means. My name, Abdu, as we were talking about before, my name, Abdu, is an Arabic word. And it actually derives its meaning. It has a shared root with the Hebrew word, because Arabic and Hebrew are both Semitic languages. And so the word Abdu, my name, literally means his slave, meaning God's slave. That's what it means. And sometimes you've seen the name Abdullah or Abdul Rahman or Abdul Karim and all that. Those names mean slave of the generous one or slave of the honorable, meaning God. So the word slave is not always an insult. It actually can be an honorific term. In fact, in the Bible, oftentimes you see there are prophets and prominent people named Obed. Obed, like Abdu, Obed means slave. Obadiah, the whole book of the Bible, Obadiah, is based on a prophet whose name means the slave of God. So the word slave doesn't always mean a bad thing. But the Bible does use it in some bad ways in some sense. The Bible describes the slavery that was going on at the time in the area of the ancient Near East, what other cultures were doing with people, owning them as property based on some characteristic that it wasn't them. So that's what we talk about. We talk about slavery, chattel-based. Chattel is a legal word that means property. Chattel, race-based slavery is what happened in the antebellum southern south of the United States and in the transatlantic slave trade, for example. And so we think of it that way. What the Bible, however, regulates, and it describes that kind of slavery, but it never condones it. What it regulates, however, is the kind of slavery that actually isn't really slavery at all. It's more like indentured servitude. It's where it's voluntary. So if I owe a debt to somebody that I can't possibly pay, I owe them money and I can't possibly pay it, I can sell my services, or they can acquire my services, not me as property. They can acquire my services to pay off the debt. And while I'm paying off that debt in working for this master, so to speak, I can get a job with someone else. I can get my own business if I want, and I can pay the debt off faster. I'm not required to be in their service for the length of my life because I'm not actually their property. And the Bible condones that kind. It regulates that kind of servitude. What's really interesting is that every 7 years, the slave or the servant, the one who owes the debt, is required to be set free, even if the debt isn't paid. Now, this is interesting all by itself. I can tell you this as a lawyer, because that's where my background and my training comes from, is that we get our bankruptcy laws, where we have the 7-year freedom from debt and freedom from creditors. We get that from the Bible. And by the way, another thing that sets someone free is even if the 7 years hasn't expired, but it happens to be the year of Jubilee, even if you're in debt to somebody for all of 2 weeks, and you haven't paid even 1 cent of your debt off, you are set free from your debt. And by the way, when you're set free from your debt, the person who owns the debt to you, the one who you owe the debt to, that person lets you go, and they have to, according to the Bible, pay liberally from their own money, their own land, and their own cattle to you as you leave, so that you never go into debt again. The Bible does not condone servitude. It tries to regulate servitude out of existence through its very edicts. So this idea that the Bible condones slavery is not true.